England's World Cup round of 16 match against Mexico began with a geographical disadvantage. Mexico City sits at an elevation of 7,300 feet, where the thin air is known to drain the oxygen from a visiting player's lungs. Then there is the venue. The Estadio Azteca is a brutalist concrete bowl designed to trap the noise of 90,000 fans. Before this game, Mexico played 10 World Cup matches here and never lost a single one. Add to that a torrential thunderstorm that battered the stadium hours before the match. The deluge flooded the inner concourses and forced a 1-hour delay to kickoff, leaving both teams to wait as pre-game adrenaline faded. First, the suffocating altitude, the stadium's impenetrable record, and the sudden severe weather acted as the first major obstacles. The environment itself seemed to be working against England before a ball was even kicked, but the weather wasn't the only source of chaos. Behind the scenes, administrative confusion at the highest level was scrambling the team's physical preparations. Citing the incoming storm, FIFA officials considered moving the kickoff forward from 6 p.m. to 12 p.m. local time. This sudden 6-hour shift threatened to shatter the players' recovery schedules. For players carrying minor injuries, those 6 hours of flexibility were critical. Stripping that time away meant the medical staff might have been forced to exclude key starters who were not yet at full match fitness. The 6 p.m. kickoff was eventually preserved, but not before Mexican manager Javier Aguirre expressed his outrage at the lack of consultation. He argued that the confusion alone had already disrupted his entire plan for the day. Tactics were being rewritten in the locker room just minutes before the players walked out. Millions of dollars in elite physical preparation had been scrapped in favor of whatever adrenaline the players had left. When the match finally began, England spent the opening period weathering a relentless Mexican swarm. Goalkeeper Jordan Pickford was forced into several sharp reflex saves, including a diving stop to deny a header at the near post. Having absorbed the pressure, England suddenly broke out. A 60-yard carry by Declan Rice sliced through the midfield and allowed Bukayo Saka to clip across into the box. Jude Bellingham headed it home to open the scoring. Then, just 90 seconds later, England pressed the restart and Bellingham scored again. In a blur of momentum, the co-hosts were suddenly down by 2. However, that 2-goal cushion was a dangerous place to be. This early dominance merely provided the height from which England was about to fall. The collapse began before halftime. Mexico volleyed a goal back from a set piece, and England barely escaped to the locker room with their lead intact after Bellingham was forced to make a goal line clearance. The situation turned catastrophic in the 54th minute. Jarell Quansah lunged into a tackle on Jesus Gallardo, and after a VAR review, he was shown a direct red card. England now faced a mathematical nightmare. For the next 40 minutes, they would have to defend a thin lead with 10 men against a surging host nation in the high altitude of the Azteca. The match devolved into a frantic trade of fouls. Harry Kane managed to extend the lead by thumping a penalty into the bottom corner, bringing the score to 3-1. But Mexico responded almost instantly. Raúl Jiménez converted a penalty of his own to make it 3-2, sending the stadium into a frenzy with 20 minutes of regular time still to play. At 3-2 and down a man, tactics were no longer the priority. The game had become a brutal, claustrophobic battle of attrition. The final 20 minutes of regular time moved with agonizing slowness. England sat deep in their own box, gasping for breath, as Mexico peppered the area with crosses and long-range shots. The fourth official provided a final gut punch, signaling an additional 11 minutes of stoppage time. Every English player on the pitch abandoned their usual positions to simply put bodies in the way. It was a total retreat into their own 6-yard box. This desperation was epitomized by a heroic last-ditch tackle on the edge of the goal line that prevented a certain Mexican equalizer in the dying seconds. Strategy had been replaced by a rhythmic, desperate cycle of Mexico swarming forward and England lunging to keep them out. The final stages were no longer about sport, but endurance. When the whistle finally blew, the players collapsed where they stood. The relief was so intense that Jordan Henderson even injured his wrist purely while trying to celebrate. After the match, Jude Bellingham remarked that when he was a fan, he watched as previous England teams crumbled in moments like this. He noted that in years gone by, this team likely would have folded under the pressure. Instead, this squad survived the altitude, the storm, and 40 minutes with 10 men. They proved they could absorb a record-breaking amount of environmental and mental stress without breaking. They advanced to face Norway in Miami as a fully battle-tested squad, provided another disaster doesn't strike before the quarterfinals.